Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our forum on the Later Start proposal for our high school in Putnam Valley. And we'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for joining us this evening to have a discussion, a dialogue about this proposal. We've been talking about it for well over a month, actually more than a month, and we've had a number of presentations in various places. We've had surveys go out. We've had conversations in various venues, and I've been at the town hall. I'll be there again later next week. And this is an opportunity also to screen this and then to stream it and then to play this on our TV network, also on the town network. So we have an opportunity, again, to hear about this project. I did distribute an FAQ to those here. I will have this FAQ posted on our website, and there'll be opportunities next week again for another forum before the board meeting. Tonight, I'd like to briefly go through some of the feedback. So the first PowerPoint that we talked about actually talked about a variety of options, and then we focused on this option that would be grades 5 through 12 coming to the high school at the same time. And now we're looking at 750, which is a 40-minute change, a full period change. So we have been able to do some work with our transportation to make it a full change that would align with the middle school. And we're going to talk tonight about, as I mentioned, some of the comments and the questions that have resulted from the inquiry of students, staff, and community. So we want to make sure that people realize in the community that we are listening, that we've heard the concerns, and we hope to address them as part of this proposal discussion. So I'd like to start just again with the first principles. This is why we're doing this. It's not simply to make the change. We looked at the research, and this research has been around for quite a while on the later the need for adolescents for a later time to start school due to their biological foundation, the circadian rhythms that they have for sleep, which is different from the rhythms that adults have for their sleep needs and the times that they get up and the time that they need to actually function well. And so the later time through the research indicates that this would have a positive impact on student achievement, which is really our purpose here, the educational purpose, but also student attendance in school, student lateness and tardiness, student physical health, mental health, safety on dark mornings on the roads that we have, the country roads we have here, and student well-being. So with that in mind, with the first principles that really are guiding this proposal, we want to mention something that has come up, this question of the time, and will 40 minutes actually affect student well-being? Well, researchers have shown that even a modest delay in school start time, 30 minutes, will produce improvements in the measures of student mood, alertness, and health in adolescent students. So, the fact that it's 40 minutes is still something that we feel could impact our students. What happens with the bus runs in a two-tier system? So currently we have a three-tier system. And what would happen with our bus runs if we had a two-tier system? Most recent analysis that we have from our transportation consultant show that there'll be shorter runs. The longest bus run would be 36 minutes. This is the latest information we have. Now, could it be 37 minutes, 38, 40? It is definitely an improvement on what we have now with the longer routes that we're running, because these would be shorter neighborhood routes. The elementary school might be able to start 10 minutes earlier, in fact, and could release at 3:20 versus 3:30. This would be an added benefit of this change that we're just learning about now as we do these new logistical analyses. The buses would be full. There's no question that the buses would be full. Right now, high school buses are underutilized. That first run is an underutilized run. Community feedback. There were 43 community comments as of December 6th. 22 community members support the change, 14 community members are opposed to the change. So, we've had a number of people write to us, and frankly, it's about even when we look at the responses. We're seeing a sort of a polarized view of the initiative. What are some of the concerns from the community? We've seen the concern for overcrowded buses. Now, the buses would be full. Everyone is assigned a seat. In other words, we have to provide an assigned seat, if you will, not assigned a special seat, but a place for our students on the buses. However, we know even now that when we assign these seats, we have many people who do drive to school. So our buses now are underutilized. I'm sure we'll have some buses that will be more full than others in this two-tier system, as we do with our three-tier system. People are concerned about the traffic, and that's something that we would have to work on. That is mostly the traffic in the front of our school, where we have our bus run coming into the school. And there would have to be some logistical changes in order to manage the 20 buses versus the 16 buses. But many schools have more than 20 buses actually coming into their schools and are able to handle this, and we would be able to do so as well. It's a question of some doubling up of the lanes, and we'd have to make a few changes there, but it certainly could be handled. There's a concern about impact on homework, jobs, the availability of extra help. Our program that we are recommending would ensure that we still have the homework help sessions, whether they are after school or whether they are during a period during the day, which we're looking at the high school for common lunch and activity period to do clubs and homework help. And right now we are offering some early homework and, early tutoring and early clubs at the middle school, and we haven't ruled that out as a possibility of continuing some of that. We will have to have a bus coming in for BOCES and for parochial schools. So we would have 3 buses running at an earlier time. The fact is we don't want to lose anything through this project. We want to gain, not lose. The project here is to gain opportunities, gain time, and even gain in alignment with the middle school, which does also provide some advantages for us. Again, there was the question of the time difference, which we've talked about to warrant the change, and I've talked about that earlier this evening. There is a concern about the expense to taxpayers, and that's certainly there and understandable. In fact, we know that the amount that we're looking at, which is around $240,000, would not impact our budget due to other offsets that we have in our budget this year. And we know that it wouldn't impact the tax rate. However, this is a valid concern about how we spend our money, and so we're very conscious of that, and we would want to make sure that people saw the value. And we do see a value here that we want to make sure we communicate to our public. And I mentioned the concern about changes to the middle school programs and clubs, and we do not want to lose our clubs, and we intend to find ways to make sure we have our clubs. High school teacher feedback, 37 teachers responded, 15 teachers felt the schedule should remain the same, 22 felt the schedule should change, 18 felt students would perform better if school started later. There are a number of advantages that were noted by the teachers. Many of those had to do with the alertness, the production, the productiveness of our students, time to sleep and eat in the morning, greater student engagement and achievement, better attendance. We've talked about some of these things, students not waiting for buses in the dark, One comment that was made, when students are sleep deprived, their focus, attention, and vigilance drift, making it more difficult to receive information. Overworked neurons can no longer function to coordinate information properly, and students lose their ability to access previously learned information. By starting later, we can help alleviate these issues. This came from one of our teachers. It was very thoughtful, I thought. Concerns, there were a number of concerns. They have to do with participation in athletics. They have to do with BOCES. Students who do have, a few of them need credit recovery, and they do take some of that during that first period, and we would have to be looking at other ways, and there are other ways to do credit recovery. They also talked about the concern that 30 or 40 minutes would not be enough, and I talked about that earlier. There was also the challenge involved with traveling with middle school students. Some people are concerned about that. Actually, right now, we have high school students coming to school with the middle school. Those who are late, who are coming in late, they ride that middle school bus. We have a number of instances where we have 5 through 12 together. And in fact, what we found is that the high school students are a tempering influence on the younger students, where there tend to be altercations in the middle school, that age group. So while from a parent point of view, I understand that could raise concerns since it hasn't occurred, in reality, where it has occurred, it's been beneficial. So this is something that we do hear from parents, and we do want to make sure that we address the concern with them. I do want to note that because these the bus trips in a two-tier system are more neighborhood-oriented, they won't be as long a bus trip. The students on the buses will tend to be people who know each other, who are siblings or neighbors or people who you babysit for or who babysit for you. And so the relationships are a little different in smaller runs. The teachers were concerned about less time for homework, again, sports, relaxation, more academic stress. Shortening after-school time has an adverse effect on students. I think what we're not looking at is reducing time after school. The students who take clubs, who work in clubs now, have to leave a little earlier for athletics. Athletics, no practices would take place before 3 o'clock. The bus trips for athletics go out at around 2:45. They'd have to probably go out between 2:45 and 3. So that's why we're looking at this common period in the middle of the day through this change in scheduling that would also offer opportunities for the club. So we want to see a more flexible approach to the process. Some people felt that the limiting of screen time was really the issue, that if that happened and students went to bed earlier, that we wouldn't have to address this concern about the later time. Some people just didn't want to change it. It's been this way for 17 years. If it's not broken, we've heard that. Don't fix it. The fiscal issue for the community, which I mentioned, general road traffic will increase, and the costs, the impact on families' after-school activities, which I have talked about. We wanted to make sure that the public knows that we have heard these concerns, that we take them into account, and that we are actually responding to them. That's why we have an FAQ that, as I mentioned, we'll be posting and is available for everyone. The student responses. The students are not happy with the idea of a change. 2/3 of the students did not want to change in the survey of students, and we had 107 students actually respond to the survey. And when I had a conversation with the 8-member student council, only one student preferred the later start. So the students are not pleased with this idea of change. They had similar concerns to those expressed by the teachers in terms of fearing losing that 10th period time, extra help, and fear that work would be pushed back later in the evening, causing them more stress because they'd have to work later on their homeworks. They had some fear that coaches wouldn't stay later due to their families. They were thinking about things that they could lose. And as I mentioned earlier, we are not interested in people losing things. We want actually to create more opportunities through this process, including an opportunity perhaps to have a healthier situation in school, a more alert, productive time in school. In terms of middle school, I mentioned the concern about the impact on middle school opportunities. And again, as I mentioned, our role here is to create opportunities, and we intend to come up with solutions to all of these issues. So, there are other questions that were raised, and I've already talked about some of them. The half-an-hour start, which now is a 40-minute start change, and the studies do talk about 8 o'clock. We would be pretty close to 8 o'clock with this proposal, which would be 10 to 8. And, how can we know the expense and all the changes will be worth it? Whenever you implement something like this, it starts with a sort of a faith. It's a leap of faith. You have the leap of faith based on a lot of logistics that you've accomplished and a lot of planning, but it's always that leap. And, the focus here is this is something that could really make things better for our students. And if it doesn't work, if after a couple of years it doesn't work, we can always go back. And if we don't ever try it, we won't be trying something that researchers said is a good idea for students and that can make a difference for them in a positive way. Is there a better way to spend the money? I think that's something that we all have to look at. Again, it's a value question. And, we have 600 students who would be impacted by this, by these funds. The teachers staying after school, I think we still would have an opportunity for teachers to give the help. As I said, we can look at more flexible ways to do this. And we are looking at a change schedule at the high school at the same time, which will create this common period for help. I just want to return to the first principles behind this, the child first and foremost. This possibility that we will probably be able to start at 7:50, the current middle school time, which means alignment. We do see the spending issue as significant, unless we do see a very positive outcome for students, and that's what we're looking for. And the rotating schedule, as I mentioned before, with the common lunch would provide those opportunities for clubs and extra help during the day as well. There'd still be a 10th period after school with time for the extra help and the clubs before athletic practices. And I end with this, we would have to think differently. And we already have started to do that. We have many new ideas. We'd like to solve these problems to ensure that the students are able to take advantage of the opportunities, and we think there'll be more opportunities for them. So with that, I would like to throw this open to our participants this evening, and would like to ask anyone who would like to say a few words about this process, anything you feel, pro or con, your ideas. And if possible, if you could come up and talk to the screen, we'd be able to get this on the video, which we'd like. So who would like to help us out and come out and say a few words? Tara?
Can I ask questions?
Yes.
I have talked to my fellow students, and a big concern was with busing, I know. I have some students that talk to me and say that they live far away already from their bus stop where they're picked up. And when you're talking about neighborhood bus runs where the location would be more centralized, I think a big question a lot of them have is, would I have to walk more than the already mile that I have to, already walk? No.
That's not. Mr. Bellina, would you help with that?
Yeah, well, until we lay out where the actual populations are, sorry, I can talk to you right here. As we're working on this, what we're trying to do is set up, again, the neighborhood areas. The one thing we do know for a fact is the main roads like Lake Oscawana, take your pick, Peekskill Hollow, where there's no place to stand basically, and it's a main road. That'll still maintain what we do now, which is the actual pickups. The other areas that are off to the side streets, we may ask you to come out to towards the main road or to a common pickup area, rather than stop at your driveway, go 20 feet, stop at somebody else's driveway, go another 20 feet, do another. So that we may look at that kind of consolidation there. I would think that if I was betting on this, it'd be less. If anybody's walking a mile from the pickup point, which I'm real surprised about, to be honest with you, except for the loop bus runs. I would tell you they probably, I'm 90% assured that they'd be less than that, so,
Okay.
okay?
A follow-up question.
Come on up, you gotta speak so they can hear you, so, go ahead.
Another question I had with busing was, you talked about each student would have a reserved seat. How many people would you be putting in one of those seats, benches?
Okay, let me explain that then. We run two sizes of buses right now. It's a 66 passenger and a 70 passenger bus. That's, if you see the really long, with the extra long buses, that's a 70. The normal bus that we have is a 66 passenger bus. The way that's computed is 2 adults per bench. So it's, 2 in a seat. And they're not, they're bench seats, they're not individual seats. So what you would have is, now on the elementary level, they can actually hold, because elementary kids are a lot smaller, they can actually go 3 to a seat. But the benches are made for 2 adult-sized people, so. And nobody is above that, so.
So a
Okay.
66 passenger bus actually holds 44 high school students.
Right, yep. Okay, come on up. We'll play tag team.
Okay, so this one isn't really about busing, it's more about the homework concern.
This one's yours. There you go. Make it easier for you.
I know that a lot of the students that I talk to that might be more academically oriented and also do a lot of athletics, I know a lot of them from talking to them, they go to bed at 11:30, 12, and they're doing homework up until then. They're not on their phones, they're not sitting around. They're doing homework because of how busy they are. A lot of the concern was, would they have to stay up that extra 40 minutes just to do their work done? Would that extra 40 minutes just be lost to just doing more homework time? I think that was a big concern.
That's an important question for us. And while I do see that from the student's point of view, we are not going to take away time. We are going to start, yes, practices would start around 3 versus the 2:45, but there's time before that to do homework, plus there's time, there'll be more time in the middle of the day where students might be able to do some work. And it doesn't preclude the fact that you could get up earlier and do work before the bus. I mean, there are lots of options here. I don't think that it's going to take, that time exists. It's a question of where that would take place, where the homework would take place. Some students use time well, and they go to, for example, they'll go to the library, or before practices, they'll do the work, do some homework, others won't. So it's a very individual thing, how students plan and do their homework. I don't think just by saying that we're going to start 40 minutes later means that there will be less time for students to do their homework. I hope you understand it. It's a flexible thing. Sometimes people get up earlier, do the homework before they get on the bus. Some will do it when they come home. I don't think the games, for example, if you're going to a game, it's going to be the same as it is now. You go to your game, you come home. Some people are doing homework after that. Some have done it beforehand. But I do understand why you'd be anxious about it.
Thank you for the opportunity, Dr. Wills. My name is Frank Zamperlin, parent of a current 5th grader. I'm also an educator locally and a school principal in Brewster. Overall, I'm in favor of the switch. A few years ago, 15, we did research on this, and it's interesting to see that not only has the research been consistent, it has grown stronger in the need for moving times like this later for high school students. There are a lot of advantages, I think, for the social, emotional well-being of high school students to make this move. I would also like to focus on 2 areas. One, I believe that looking at the aligned time between middle and high school lends itself to a lot more opportunities for cross-grade level work and alignment between the programs of the middle school and the high school. I think that presents itself with a lot of advantages, with scheduling, with staffing, with collaboration, an alignment of curriculum and program. There are a lot of key advantages here that I see. If you're looking at scheduling and manipulating time, there's a lot that can be done in that area and bringing both groups together. As again, a parent of a fifth grader, I do not have a problem with my child riding the bus with high school students. I see that as an advantage, actually. We live up in the Roaring Brook Pudding Street area. Our bus ride currently is 50 minutes, and that's a long time. Sometimes it's much easier for me to drive my child in than to spend all that time on the bus. So when we're talking about 40 minutes of capturing time in the morning, think about 50 minutes for those students in that area sitting on the bus. That's a long time. And then you take 20 minutes off that bus run at 36 minutes on average, and I know that's flexible time, but you're gaining in other places too. I think that's very important to focus on. So again, I'm in favor of that, and I think it lends itself to a lot of advantages moving forward. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Someone else like to provide input and ideas?
Hello, Janine Ruffo, School Board President, so I'll get a chance on Thursday as well when we talk about this at our regular board meeting. But I just have some clarifying questions that as I was thinking, I was going to go home and look at my notes, but I thought it might help the public. Currently, dismissal is 150. Yes. And I'll just see lots of nods, so that's correct. And 10th period, that extra help goes until almost 2:45 is my understanding, or 2:30? 2:30, so it's a full 40 minutes. And then most practices start about 2:45. So now we'd be ending school at 2:30, 2:34. Thank you for this specific. Same as the middle school, 2:34. And the extra help period will now be 30 minutes for athletes, for teams.
No, the extra help could go as long as 40 minutes.
So it could,
It
could
right
go to
now-
4:15.
Yeah, and right now, that extra help really isn't a 40-minute period. It could be, but it isn't. It depends on, in any one club, how long they actually are there. Some clubs are there for 20 minutes. Some clubs start at 2. Almost none of them start at 1:50, because by the time the students, but
But that would affect the 2:34.
yes,
They may not start
yes,
at 2:34.
but they would go then to. It would be no more than 40 minutes, but it's certainly, right now, it's very flexible. And, unless, we would not, actually, I wouldn't want to consider this unless we knew that we were having different ways to actually provide that extra help. And students, not all students are in athletics. Those students who are in athletics would have more time. And it's that way now, too, because when at 2:45, they do go, to athletics. And some go to extra help, some don't. It's very, very individualized.
And my other question is more logistic and cost. So it's approximately $240,000 for the additional bus, but won't we see a fuel savings because we're not going to have 16 buses running 3 times? We're going to have 16 buses running 2 times. So over time, that's going to offset.
There would be an offset. We
20
don't-
buses 2
yeah,
times.
and could be as much as $40,000, because it's, I don't know, we figured out something like 360,000 miles or something. That, yeah, 360. So that's a sustainability piece,
right.
but it's
Carbon
also
imprinting, all
carbon
of that
imprinting,
stuff,
right? But it's also we don't want to put a figure on it because, of course, it fluctuates with the energy, with the costs. So we didn't want to put a figure on it, but we know there'll be some offset.
Okay, those are just my only clarification. Thank you.
And we do have some savings this year that allow us to do this. We do have some savings, and that will be going forward. We have a number of retirements that enable us to do some things that maybe we couldn't do in the past, or, in terms of these funds, so as not to impact the budget in terms of tax increases. This wouldn't include or involve a tax increase based on this.
In theory, I'm always about theories. In theory, as those new hires that come in to replace those teachers that have retired, as their salaries go up, our population of students goes down. So we should be seeing some sort of inverse relationship, in theory, of not needing all 20 buses, maybe going down to 19 or 18, depending on however the cocktail works out. So that's something to keep in mind as far as the sustainability of that additional expense. Then when everything goes up to go along with it, you can fit that in there. Also, a couple of things that are, I think, important to really make sure we nail if we're going to do this is look at flexibility in everything transportation that we do and beyond transportation, especially in those after-school schedules. Because right now we're fixed in our 3:15 bus that goes from the middle school to the elementary school, so they catch the elementary school bus for those that stay after. The 3:30 bus, the 4:15 bus, and the 5:30 bus. Really, all that stuff needs to be put under a microscope to figure out how that works with the new normal, if that becomes the new normal. And we might need more buses for after school than we typically use, that we have been using, because we'll have more people staying later. We don't have the benefit of the middle school bus taking high school kids home. And before school, I think the idea is, like you said, Dr. Wills, the idea of not trying to take anything away. And if we can make things, curve some of the corners in certain areas, we might get it all. And there might be a few things that, maybe somebody who's doing sports that has to do an away game, they miss 10 minutes of what the prescribed 40-minute period 10 might be, but maybe period 10 is not really 40 minutes. Or period 10 could be even longer, depending on what we do with the after-school buses, because if we have a 3:30 bus now and we have a 4:15 bus, there are opportunities to get on any one of those buses, so a club or whatever is going on could be shorter or longer. And in the middle school, a ton of those kids get picked up and don't take the bus from the after-school program. So just some things to think about.
I think the idea is how flexible we can be and use our time productively with our students. I think we can do a lot. The question is, can we make this change without people feeling that they are losing? I don't want people to feel that they're losing, because I know a lot of my colleagues, many of my colleagues, are trying to do something with time in their schools. They're trying to have a later time as well. And we didn't think we could get the 40 minutes. Now that we see that, that is really a very positive opportunity for us, we think. And it's about helping the students, and I know students worry, and I think we all do. We all have apprehensions when there is change. But as I said, sometimes we have to make that leap to see maybe this will really make a lot of things better for people. I mean, we had 7,000 tardies last year. That's a lot of tardies. I'm talking about 9 through 12, each incident. That means a lot of time that kids weren't in school. And many of them, as I mentioned, were taking the middle school bus. So somehow or another, it was easier for them to get up that little bit later, that 40 minutes, to get that bus. So, I think we need to take a deep breath about this and think maybe this will be something really good for our students, looking at all the research, all the background, and if we can do it. I mean, there were times I don't believe we could do this in the district because we didn't have the fiscal foundation to do it. We do have that now, and I think in general it could have a very good impact on the well-being of our kids.
At one point, we thought we could only get 10 minutes.
Exactly.
And, spend the money on 10 minutes would be
No.
non-starter.
No. So Anyone else want to join the conversation?
I always sit and imagine what people in the audience are thinking, and then I try to say what I think people might be thinking. And one of the things that crossed my mind is the $240,000 not having impact on the taxpayer. And it does, because we could possibly save that $240,000 and give it back, which is why it goes back to what Dr. Wills said at the very beginning. None of this is worth doing if it's not going to have an important impact, if it's not something we want to spend our money on. And I think there are a number of positive reasons: alignment of the two schools, extra time in the morning, all the research, that it is something that we may as a district choose to spend our money on. So I just want to clarify, if anybody says we're trying to say we're not, it doesn't affect, we know it does. It's still an expense that would be a savings if we didn't do it. But on the other hand, if we think it's important enough, it's like any expenditure, we're going to spend it because it's going to be about what's best for our kids, as long as they don't lose anything. You know, and that's what we still have to figure out.
Sure.
Have we really researched every option? Have we looked at doing a 4-day rotation with the high school schedule? Have we looked at taking the 10th period and making it first period? So then that would give the majority of the students a second period start time rather than coming in for first period. Have we really looked at every single avenue?
Well, I can't say that we've looked at every single avenue. We've looked at every avenue that we could see as something that we could manage. And I think the rotating schedule that the high school has put together is pretty creative in providing things that we might need. I mean, we could still use, I feel, and I know there's some, who don't agree, but I feel we could offer some things still in the morning. In other words, sort of the idea that you're talking about, having the 10th period. Because we do have those 3 extra buses that will be coming to the school. So that's something I haven't negated, and it's something I still feel is worth thinking about. Because that could provide that, what you call the 10th period, for those who would want to do something. But we'd also want to have it after school. So there's 2 different possibilities there. So we don't want to force a student to come in before school, but maybe once or twice a week there's something going on that they do want to take, because a club would be once a week. So that's where we're looking at that flexibility. Okay, well, I want to thank, come on up, Carrot. You have the last word.
Do we have any information on how the elementary school would be affected, like teacher schedules being pushed back later for the elementary school, and for the parents in the morning, if you push back school, would they be still able to attend their work, I guess, later in the day? How would childcare, I guess, work in the morning? Are there any concerns, do you know, that the elementary school parents have about this, or?
I don't really think it would have a major effect on childcare. It would be a positive, there could be a positive effect in the afternoon for the elementary. We think we can actually get out 10 minutes earlier, I think, as I mentioned, from the elementary, which would be nice since we do get out quite late, 3:30. I don't know about the childcare in the morning, because this is similar to the situation right now where high school students are gone, middle school students then go, and the elementary is the last. So that's the way it has been, and I don't think so. There are also still the programs that are offered through the rec department for kids. We still have those programs running. But it's a good question. I don't see right now how they would be impacted badly, but I may be wrong. Anything else? Well, I want to thank everyone for coming, and we're hoping that the people at home will watch the video and hear your concerns and continue to let us know their perceptions. And we'll be back again next Thursday at 6 o'clock prior to the board meeting Thursday night. Thank you all very, very much.